Imagine discovering a monster living beneath a house, only to find out that the monster isn't the worst thing down there. That's the terrifying realization at the heart of Zach Cregger's 2022 film, Barbarian. At first, the movie feels like a typical horror story. A woman arrives at a rental house late at night. The place is double booked. A strange man is already inside. Every instinct tells her to run. But as the story unfolds, you find yourself asking, who's the real barbarian in this film? And that's what we're going to discuss. Welcome back to Redeeming Horror, where we discuss horror films through a Christian lens, searching for deeper truths. If you like this video, please subscribe for more. Now, let's talk about Barbarian. During the first act of the film, we really don't know where the evil is coming from. Is it Keith? Does he have dark plans for Tess? But when they both make their way below the house and find the monster, we get our answer. But the most disturbing idea in Barbarian is this. The monster in the story didn't choose to become who she is. She was made. As the film unfolds, we discover the tunnels beneath the house were built by a man who abducted women and kept them imprisoned for decades. The creature living in those tunnels is the result of generations of abuse and captivity. Yes, she's violent, she's terrifying, but she's also tragic because she is the product of someone else's evil. Long before the creature existed, terrible things were already happening in that house to women. The monster didn't create the evil created the monster. Later in the film, a homeless man helps Tess escape the woman and gives her this warning. He tells her she's not even the worst thing in there. The real monster is the man who started it all, the man who built the tunnels and did horrible things, and he was still living down there. This idea connects deeply with a biblical understanding of sin. Sin doesn't just destroy the person committing it, it spreads. It spreads outwardly. It damages others. It corrupts environments. In the book of James, we read this: desire gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. The idea there is that sin grows, and if it's never confronted, it eventually produces something monstrous. Barbarian visualizes that reality in a literal way. A house filled with hidden sin eventually produces a literal monster, and that monster is of his creation. Barbarian is obviously commentary on emotional and physical violence of men toward women and how that trauma and abuse manifests. But it also highlights what can happen when we all have hidden sins deep within us that we keep below the surface. We don't think others can see it, but it festers, it grows, and eventually, if we don't confess those sins, it turns into a destructive monster. And we see this in our next point. One of the strangest things about Barbarian is the neighborhood itself. When Tess first arrives at the house, we find a rundown neighborhood. The street is empty, most of the homes are abandoned, the entire place feels decayed. It looks like a neighborhood that has been forgotten. And at first, we assume the danger from the film comes from the neighborhood itself, that poverty or crime has made the place unsafe. But as the story unfolds, the film quietly suggests something else. The neighborhood isn't the source of the corruption, but actually the result of it. The evil hidden in that house has been there for decades. Long before Tess ever arrived, terrible things were happening beneath that property, and the longer that darkness stayed hidden, the more everything around it seemed to rot. But there's another truth here that reflects the real world. Rundown neighborhoods rarely become that way on their own. More often, they become vulnerable because powerful people abandon them, or worse, exploit them. Landlords profit from decay rather than restoring what's broken. Instead of building something good, they simply leech off of what remains. They drain every ounce of worth out of that place, and then when there's nothing left to get from it, they abandon it altogether. When AJ discovers the hidden tunnels beneath the house, he doesn't see the tragedy of the neighborhood or even pay attention to the signs of abuse in his own property. Instead, he sees square footage. Instead, he measures the basement. Instead, he calculates how much money he could make by listing the extra space. Even the nightmare beneath the house becomes, in his mind, an opportunity. AJ represents the same mindset that often allows struggling communities to collapse. A mindset that asks, what can I get out of this place? Instead of, how can I restore it? And that also connects to a powerful biblical truth. Sin rarely stays contained. It leaks outward, where entire environments begin to decay. Scripture describes sin like yeast spreading through dough. The Apostle Paul writes, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. And that's exactly how hidden sin works. It eventually expands, it builds pathways, it digs deeper into a person's life until eventually it creates an entire underground world of darkness. And the longer it stays hidden, the harder it becomes to escape. By the time Tess discovers what's really beneath the house, the corruption has been growing and growing for decades, not just beneath the house, but around it as well. The main question the film wants you to think about is this one. Who's the real barbarian? Is it the monster in the tunnels, killing people in the neighborhood at night? Or is it the evil man who created her? Long before Tess ever arrived at that house, someone chose to hide terrible things beneath the house. And those hidden sins didn't disappear, they grew, they multiplied, they eventually created something monstrous. That's why the Bible repeatedly calls people to bring sin into the light. In the Gospel of John, we read, people love darkness rather than the light because their works were evil. Darkness protects sin, but it also allows it to grow. Barbarian ultimately works as a kind of warning, not just about monsters, but about the consequences of what happens when evil is allowed to remain hidden for generations. Because the most terrifying truth in the film is this. The creature in the basement isn't the true horror. The true horror is what human beings are capable of creating when sin is left unchecked. Thanks for watching.